specialist at Microsoft and formerly come from a customer role. And so I'm happy to be here today to present the integrated SIEM and XDR threat protection. We're going to go over a few mundane things. Maybe if you're an expert out in the field, you'll find this first part a little boring. But I wanted to level set everybody into the correct mind frame so that we can continue down the path. So one of the things that's interesting is that we are in an area of unprecedented change. Many organizations feel the constrained resources as they either try to hire people or get new people on board, or in some cases, we regrettably have lost people that have moved on to other positions. So this basically happened virtually overnight. And companies that have seen the need to accelerate digital transformation, which ensures worker productivity and responds to rapid shifting customer expectations. As the technology and the business models change, the overall landscape has changed, and we're no longer able to expect the access of everybody behind a corporate resource solely from the office on company-owned devices. So in many ways, every company is now a technology company, providing services for their internal customers or their employees, and as security teams are charged with protecting an ever-growing digital footprint. And the forceability is to do it as cheaply as possible. So in some respects, taking all together all the trends we've outlined represented a shared challenge. So to adapt to this new reality, we need a new set of principles where we're moving to zero trust. So we're moving from an assumption to explicit verification, adoption of policy-based least privilege access model, and design with the assumption that every element in your system can be breached. To that point, there are a few key principles in zero trust. So zero trust provides a modern security framework. It's not a product, it's a framework, right? To manage those complexities in organizations. And so really a holistic approach to zero trust should extend through every piece of your digital estate. It serves as an integrated security philosophy on an end-to-end strategy. And you can do this by implementing zero trust controls across 6 foundational elements. Those include data, devices, identities, infrastructure, apps, and network. One of the key principles here is how we do this, right? So starting at the center, Microsoft Security has approach to both broaden and deepen your understanding of the entire estate and everything going on. There is driven off of 2 center pillars. Machine learning, giving you that breadth of data, that uncompromising amount of signals from your modern workplace and cloud infrastructure. And then thousands of world-class researchers at Microsoft driving to understand those trends and across the entire landscape. That insight superpowers your security teams in 2 essential ways. First, you need to protect, right? Stay on top of any new attacks in an efficient way, show the SOC the alerts that matter, tell the whole story of the incident, provide the tools to automate fast response. In fact, respond entirely automatic so that an attack is taken care of before it has any impact at all. And the other one is prevention, right? So stay on top of the endless to-do list of everything that we need to do in our attack framework to make sure that we're up to date. And then basically update your devices, enhance configuration, the things in the hygiene stack that seem to be left out and really are what are the most important steps in your environment. And we deliver 2 tools that we're going to talk more about in detail. So Azure Sentinel and Microsoft Defender. Both of these are really important, and they work hand in hand to guide you through that modern workplace and cloud infrastructure. Everything comes together with Sentinel, right? A new cloud native solution that reimages SIEM and SOAR capabilities. So Azure Sentinel provides intelligent security analytics, cloud scale, across everything, no matter how many devices you own, whatever your scale is, whatever your size of your enterprise, across every segment of your environment, even if it's multi-cloud, on-prem, it doesn't matter. Because Azure Sentinel makes it easy to collect security data across that entire, for devices, users, apps, servers, and anything in either of the clouds. So that burden of traditional SIEM is eliminated from by needing the time to set it up, maintaining it, scaling the infrastructure, building out your own VMs or your own hardware. So Azure is built on a limitless cloud scale and speed that scales automatically to address any of your security needs. So Azure Sentinel SecOps can focus on finding real threats. Azure Sentinel helps reduce the noise by eliminating events with machine learning and knowledge based on all the signals that we get every day, trillions and trillions. In fact, during the pandemic, we shared an example of how, if you watch the news, Azure Sentinel used machine learning with its fusion capabilities to filter through 50 billion anomalous alerts and reduce it to 25 high fidelity actionable incidents. And this is how Sentinel helps you reduce the fatigue on your team, right? Because it's very difficult to gather all of that intelligence on your own and keep it going in an aspect where you're going to be able to analyze that with your own internal team. So let's take a look at Defender now, because that's the other part of this solution. Defender, Extended Detection and Response, XDR, is the pretty much new standard technology that addresses and helps for security operations team to increase efficiency and effectiveness to get ahead of those threats, right? So endless lists of alerts from multiple solutions that make it difficult for defenders to link those effectively at the speed they need to contain a real threat. So XDR delivers an intelligent, automated, integrated security to help close gaps in prevention, detection, and response. So Microsoft offers the most comprehensive XDR available on the market with Defender. It's already today. It's out there. So Defender delivers the most comprehensive XDR solution because it's tailored experience for the security professional. We have it broken down into two categories: Microsoft 365 for Defender and Azure Defender. So in 365 Defender, it provides a set of connected best-in-breed solutions for your data, devices, endpoints, identities, and applications. Azure Defender does the other half, which is providing that threat protection across your server endpoints, your containers, if you're using Kubernetes, AKS, network, infrastructure, your endpoints on those pieces. So like switches and switch gear, that type of pieces. And then IoT on the edge, which could be part of or have managed apps. It depends on on your environment. So together, both of the Defender and Azure Defender deliver end-to-end XDR solution for threat detection and response across the entire thing. If it's private cloud on-premise, is probably the correct terminology for you, or if it's in a public cloud. And so you can connect Defender to Azure Sentinel and benefit from the comprehensiveness of a SIEM and a single prioritization of your XDR. So those pieces work together so you can group all of that together in a single container. So Defender is fully integrated cross-domain detection and XDR solution. So it provides organizations with the ability to prevent, detect, and remediate. So a lot of that can be done on endpoints automatically. If you worked with Defender for email and 365, that also has that capability. So Defender automatically detects those breaches across the domains and then automating the normalization, analysis, collation to turn those siloed alerts into incidents, right? You want those alerts to be gathered up into a single incident for management so that you can take less time digging through that data. It enables you to protect deep into your environment. So if you are a security professional and you want to do in-depth advanced hunting capabilities, you can do that. We support that in all the platforms. So if you're looking at advanced hunting, that is available, and you can build those custom detections from that advanced hunting to remediate as well. So finally, one of the other things is that Defender enables you to visualize and remediate across your 365 from a single integrated dashboard. So 365 is built on this best-in-class product that helps protect each of the major perimeters. And if we know our zero trust history, that's identity, endpoint, apps, email, and docs. And so when you integrate these products, your security perimeter becomes even stronger. And 365 Defender leverages those raw signals from individual domains, user identities, your endpoints, your applications, email, right? Data, collaboration tools, teams, normalizing all that data at the point of creation. And then that data is analyzed and low-level signals that may otherwise be missed, as well as individual alerts that are all fused into incidents, giving you a complete view of an attack that can be responded to and completeness, so that you have all the data at the tips of your fingers. And then you can go ahead and use powerful workflows in IA to do auto healing on affected assets. So if you have in advanced hunting capabilities, means your organization can prioritize those into proprietary knowledge to uncover breaches and customize the response to that incident. Because every organization is different, right? So you can't always predict everything in every organization. So some of the examples maybe would be like we provide a unified threat investigation experience for identities in hybrid, right? We bring that in from Defender for Identity into a single dashboard that you can identify suspicious user activities across on-premise, combine them with your cloud events, and then you can see that holistic picture on those end users. And then you can mitigate those users who may have been compromised, or maybe enforcing a password change, or revoking their connection, or applying conditional access policy based on the threat landscape that you see in your organization. So because if an attacker can compromise a single endpoint and quickly expand its foothold across your entire network, our solution enables you to secure that endpoint anywhere via a unified platform for preventative protection, post-breach detection, automated investigation and response, And Microsoft Threat works on the desktop, mobile devices, and servers, regardless of OS, including Apple, Linux, SQL Server. And so it gives those organization users the flexibility to choose what devices they want to use. But that native protection is on all those devices, allows a balance between productivity and security. So, because as we talked about in the beginning, it's about safeguarding your entire Microsoft 365 environment against the malicious threats posed by emails or collaboration tools or whatever they clicked on in the browser. And then one of the things is that you can define those threat policies to set the appropriate level of protection based on your organization's policies. So you can view real-time reports to monitor security, use our leading-edge tools to investigate and understand and prevent threats, and even simulate attacks to learn valuable information about your weaknesses, right? So that gives you the time and benefit of saving time and the effort of investigating and mitigating threats, that automated investigation and response capabilities. As part of this, you also give your end users the flexibility to use apps they choose without compromising security by extending the visibility, auditing, and control you have on premise with your cloud applications. So you can detect unusual behavior across cloud apps and identify the ransomware and discover users users that are compromised or rogue applications that you don't know about, analyze high-risk usage, and automatically remediate to eliminate the risk of your organization. So that's important across your entire thing, because we talked about the OS platforms that we support, and we think about our platforms and services before we want to do this. And so we have to make sure that we can support that entire infrastructure in our environment before we roll out a product. So let's switch over to Azure Defender, and we provide a competitive XDR solution for Windows and Linux servers, containers. I talked about AKS a little bit, or Kubernetes, and then serverless workloads. So widely adopted across Azure, and hybrid customers as well. So Azure Defender benefits from the intelligence that we have in Microsoft Security Graph, because we use trillions of signals from Microsoft services and systems around the globe to identify new and evolving threats. So some vendors deliver XDR and some deliver a SIEM. Microsoft believes that defenders can benefit from using deep integration from SIEM and XDR for end-to-end visibility, and prioritize those actionable insights across your entire enterprise asset estate. And so we're committed to that and covering all the resources to simplify the deployment in your environment. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is the end-to-end security picture, because we talk about integrated in a little bit, and we talked about these pieces, but I wanted to dig in a little bit more on the end-to-end security, because there's over 40 categories that we have in the security stack that allows us to go between hybrid, public cloud, including Azure, AWS, and GCP. So that allows you to really build out that entire security framework. Everything that we've talked about in Zero Trust, to make sure that you are doing whatever you can to protect those endpoints. Because at the end of the day, it only takes one to get in, right? One unsecure account, one insecure device, and that's the problem. So it could be an application, it could be a browser extension, it could be something in a data section that you don't realize. It could be from people inside your own organization that's trying to either exfiltrate or attack your environment as they're being terminated. Also, we don't know about endpoints from mobile applications. So that's why important on mobile applications to deploy that and have mobile device management. So, you know, we talk a lot about this and we say, oh yeah, that's great. You just really talk up and your software is great. Well, it's not just us, right? We prove it. We prove it by leading, and we lead in Gartner in 5 quadrants. And we do this on unified endpoints, endpoint protection, Defender, and we do that across cloud access, security brokers, access management, and enterprise information. You know, some of the comments that I get from other customers is, wow, that's great. You're in Gartner. I don't really like them. Okay, well, that's fine. We're also in Forrester, leader in 8 Forrester Wave and New Wave reports. There again, we do the same things: unstructured data, cloud security gateway, identity as a service, unified endpoint, email security, and extended detection and response. So I will throw up a couple links for you because SIEM and XDR is one of our biggest capabilities that we like to do. We also have a great video from Eric Littford in Microsoft Mechanics that does a great job at demoing this, probably better than I do. And we also have a customer story where we rapidly deploy through partner services and professional service in Azure Sentinel. And I have a customer story that I included that I wanted to show you. That's correct. Microsoft is also in the top right-hand quadrant for SIEM in the latest reports as well. Thank you, Steve. So that's pretty much it for the talking part. I will take some questions, and if we want to share out some content, I can go ahead and show you anything in Sentinel that you care to see, or Defender, you're quite. So I'll let Caden unmute those folks if anybody has questions or comments.
Yep, I've done that already. I know I'm not Caden. I don't sound like him, but I am. I did let everybody take mics off. So if you have any questions or if there's anything you want to see, please let Scott know. If not, I'm sure Scott will be more than happy to bring up a demo and punch around.
I'm going to drive anyway, so you knew that, right?
Yep.
So if you are one of my customers, you probably have seen me do demos before. If not, please reach out because I will be more than happy to talk to you about any of the products that we have as part of the solution in higher education. And I also support K-12 and AMCs. I can go through pretty much any of those pieces. So the question, can you describe how pricing works for Sentinel and log workspaces? Sure, I can do that. Now, whoops. And any allowances for Defender per endpoint? Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, more questions. If you have API licensing, well, you're in luck there. So let's go through a couple of those. Let me find the first one is, so we do have log analytics standing behind Sentinel. And the way it works is we do log ingestion. We can scale that back at however you decide to configure it. So as you go through the tool and set up some of the pieces, there are and forgive me for demo environment, but so there are price discounts as you go and pay-you-go tiering. As you go over certain thresholds, we provide automatic discounts. It is your job as the customer, though, to go into this setting tool and then select the next level when you hit that level in your chart. We do not do that for you automatically. I've had a couple customers like, well, what? You said there'd be a 50% discount. Well, yes, there is a 50% discount in the Sentinel pricing, but you have to go in and check that apply to go from pay-as-you-go current tier to a next tier. The other thing to
I was going to say one thing, Scott.
Yep.
You also have to do the same thing on the tiers for the log analytics workspace as well.
I'm headed there next. So next, as I head over to log analytics workspace, you have to do the same thing. So in here under the cost estimation, I will let this load real quick. So this isn't a huge demo environment, but you get the idea. So as you see here in your pay-as-you-go is checked, you then have to select the next level down in your log analytics tier. They are kind of separated, you know, by price. Each one is combined into a single pricing calculator. And if you have questions more about that, you can reach out to me and I can help you. But if you're in my territory. Steve and Caden and a few other my coworkers cover other territories, and I realize this is probably national an event, so you may not fall into one of my territories, but one of my colleagues will be more than happy to help. The other thing that I will look for really quickly is the 365 A5 Sentinel benefit. I think it's this right here. Oh, that's the E5 and not the A5.
But it's the same though.
Yeah. So customers that are on A5 for educational customers, they automatically get 5 megs per user per day of data ingestion to Sentinel. It doesn't matter where that data comes from, right? There are certain pieces that it requires. So those pieces are like Azure Active Directory sign-in logs or that type of data. And that data is then done. Now, one of the things I will tell you in this fact, and I forgot who asked it, Vincent was the question. One of the things to remember is this benefit does automatically apply, but you do not see it in Azure Analytics. And if I'm wrong, Steve, you can correct me. But in a customer's tenant, it doesn't actually show the discount. It does show the discount in the enterprise portal, your EA portal, which is where the billing and the pieces that you do as a above a global admin, right? Your enterprise admin or your contracted person would do. That's where the actual discount shows up in your monthly billing. So if you don't see it in the analytical portion inside a Defender, don't get scared because it won't show up here. As far as I know. Now, this one is a new temp demo environment. And this new feature showed up the other day. So don't quote me on that because I don't know, but it hadn't showed it before. So what other questions we got? Oh, thank you for the Caden for the pricing calculator. Yes. So So that's right. So you may start out with Sentinel and you don't know how much data you're going to ingest. That's okay, because we have a trial, 30-day trial that's automatically set up when you set up a new tenant, a new subscription, I'm sorry, and spin up Sentinel in that subscription. You can get that. And I think there's a 10 gig limit, correct?
Yes, correct.
That's right. And that 10 gig limit, that goes quite a ways. If you're testing this out and you really want to know how things are running, that's a great way to do that. Now, there are a bunch of free data sources, if you did not know that. And I will hold that right here. So these data sources, and I will put this in the chat window, they are free automatically all the time. And that gives you the capability of starting your journey down this so that you can get started. This is not, in by itself. In some cases, this may not suit every scenario that you're trying to test, but it's a great way to get started. Sentinel, set it up, configure log analytics, do a little piece at a time, onboard 1 or 2 servers, and get started. The other piece to that is that if you're using Defender for Cloud antivirus, those logs can go in and alerts can also be pulled into Sentinel. So if, for instance, you are doing that and you want to, oh, I closed the window. That's really bad. And let's go back one here. That's good enough. Okay, so as you're doing this and you want additional logs and data connectors in, you can start by starting out with those data connectors. There's a lot of data connectors, and this is not all of them. Okay, the reason being is that, and I'll show you that in a second. Remind me and I will show you. So in here under the data connector page, you notice that Defender for Cloud has certain pieces in here, and then you can enable certain subscriptions. So as you do this, you bring in those logs as well. So just careful what you click on in here and look at the data, the link I put in the chat to make sure you're ingesting the correct free logs. So as I said, not all data connectors might be in this list. There are a lot of data connectors in here, 140, but if there is one that you do not see, don't freak out. Go to Content Hub. Somebody give me a good application name that, well, maybe I shouldn't do that live.
Aruba.
Oh, come on. We got to think of a good one. How about Zscaler? That's kind of weird. Maybe. So as you do this and pick out a particular product from your inventory that you have, they will onboard a new data connector into your environment. Now, in this case, Zscaler data doesn't come in quite the correct format. So we also include 2 parsers along with that, as well as a couple analytical rules and a few workbooks. That gets you started down that process so that you can do that.
Does the parser parse out information that the SIEM might not need?
Well, the parser will parse out any data that's presented to it. Now, one of the questions in the chat is perfect, right? Because is there documentation from devices such as Palo? Well, let's go over here and I will show you something. So in here, we've got Palo Networks, and I think, if I'm not wrong, there's additional ones in the Content Hub. Let me go look. I think there's more than one, and this is a demo environment, so please forgive me. Yes. So based on which one product you have, you could do that. Oh, I see Aruba too. Huh? You want Aruba? Okay. Yeah. Aruba Clear Glass. That's even more. So one of the things is, as you go in here, you'll notice the data connector, the parser is in here. Hey, I need more about this. Well, agent, okay. So as you do that, there is a spot right here. Which is stuck. I have to find the right one. As you go through, there will be additional ones in here, so you can view those and then find and deploy that specific solution. So we have quite a few documentation on each one of those. So as you go through those and install those, you can grab that documentation. So each one of these, and I wish I really would have had that in a format better for you. But there is a piece in each of these to go through the content solutions and enable those pieces. So after you upload or enable, you have to enable content items in the solution. And so by doing this, this documentation walks you through that. If you're looking at a specific connector, for instance, in this one, and I will go back to the follow one, and you open the connector page, this tells you exactly what you need to do that, and then to configure the for next gen, right? For sending ceph logs, right? This is the steps to configure it in your Palo. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. That's the idea. Now it depends on which data connector you're using. You may find the documentation in the page of the connector, or if it's on the solution one, you may find it on the solution. But either way, it's going to be in one of those, depending on which type of connector you choose. Other questions? Ooh, come on, this is too easy.
Hey, one of the things I wanted to point out, if I can do that through you there, clicking around, Scott, can you go to workbooks and pick up and bring up the cost workbook and just show them how they can calculate with the free ingest or the 5 megabit ingest and add that in there so to give them a better idea?
Yes, sir. So what this does is now it's pre-filtered here, right? So for the last 30 days in my workspace, which is my Hog Analytics workspace, right? Or Sentinel workspace. And then the ingestion price, right? So I've set my ingestion price.
And setting the ingestion price is based on what tier you're in.
That's correct. Yes. Based on that, you could be in the 100 or 200 gig pricing tier, depending on which one you're in. And then what your retention price is, right? So we didn't talk about that too much, but so the first 90 days is included in Sentinel, right? So you get that 90 days of ingestion and log storage. After that, there's a small fee based on the number of gigs that you're going to store. The value there is that you can store those for a very long time, I think up to 7 years, and then it requires a support request. But there's other functionality in there as well. So on that retention, you can do longer retention if you need to export those off. There's other methodologies. There also is now archiving built into it. So if you don't want hot storage price, you can go to cold storage price. So for retention, off the top of my head, I don't know. I think it's like, I don't want to say, but it's like either half or 60-some% off in archive to retain that. So your average billable gigs per day ingested in the last 30 days, your total ingestion, and then it goes by a breakdown of billable ingestion so that you know your Azure resources, security events, what are you actually getting billed for? How much is this costing on each piece that you onboard? So if you're looking for a very specific piece of data that you're ingesting, you can narrow that down to see, well, that's not costing me anything. Oh, well, hey, wait a minute, my AWS CloudTrail logs, okay, that's costing me $17 a month.
So one thing that's not auto calculated is the amount of A5 license you have. So in the very top, you can actually plug that in there.
Correct. This
And
one's set for 3,000 already.
correct. But if you scroll to all the way to the bottom of that, it'll actually show you what you're ingesting from the A5
Yeah,
eligible sources right there.
right there. I forgot about that workbook. It's one of those, once you get your Sentinel environment going, there's probably not many surprises in your life. As long as you know your environment, you're a security engineer, you really know what you're doing, you tuned it after the first few months, there's sometimes you get a surprise. But for the most part, it's pretty fairly in all the orgs that I've seen, it's pretty stable.
And there was another question from Chris. What's the
Okay.
recommended approach for adding custom connector integrations for ingest in the case of they're not available? I put the link in there. I am not familiar with the actual different
yeah.
pieces, but I put the link in the chat window.
So yes, I can answer that though.
Right.
So in data connectors, there is a specific data connector. Common event format, Ceph. So any product, and almost every product does, that exports to Ceph, which is the common event format, you can import, no problem. Now, the thing is on that, it will take a little while for the connector to be set up and that piece. You do have to do a little bit of legwork on your own because there's an extra Linux machine that you need. You install this configuration piece, but it's pretty easy to do. To me, it took me about birth to set up, probably 90 minutes, maybe from ISO. And then after you do that, the only thing I can say is that your Ceph logs, very important, they're kind of brought in a clean manner. So some products like, say, Cisco Umbrella, which now has a connector, so this isn't a thing. But back in the day when I did it, there wasn't a connector for it. And you have to kind of format those columns so you get the specific data that you want in the fields that you want, so that it can be identified. Otherwise, you have to write a parser. That's the only stipulation.
And there's a couple of them that you can actually, outside of the common event format, you can actually build your own connectors as well. And that was the link that I put in there where it's got the codeless platform, the log analytics agent, and it goes through on each one of them how complex one is to how simple it is. And of course, the more complexity, the more information you're going to get, the simpler it is. There's probably going to be certain things that you're missing out on. There's also, in that same link, if on the left-hand side, create a codeless connector, which is in preview right now, actually in public preview. Yes.
Yes, I didn't talk about preview. Sorry.
Yes, that's all right.
But it's pretty easy. I mean, I've been through it already. It's not hard. Yeah, I set up this for my logs from my Synology box, just because I can. What versions of Linux are supported for the collector? Ooh, well, Okay, let's answer the second question first. How many devices can the collector handle? Well, that depends on how many boxes are going to your collector and how many events are happening in that specific collector. So that's a little hard to say. From my experience, I had a VM, not Hyper-V, but the other. I ran it as a 4-proc, 8 gigs of RAM, and I had about 60 some machines going through it with no problem. But yes, there is, wow, he's got documentation, right? And supported versions, thank you very much. That is the deployed and the supported operating systems. Quite a few to choose from, so all the current ones actually. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Woohoo! Yep, another one down. So when you're talking about that, it's really and that is the preferred minimum 4-core 8 gigs RAM. It really depends on how many logs, right? So this states that a single log forward machine above hardware, blah, 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 8,500 events per second. So depending on how chatty your equipment is or what kind of logs you're sending, 8,500 events per second. Yeah, that's quite a bit. That could be DNS logs at that rate. Any other questions? Come on. Anything else anybody want to see?
Just a quick question. Now that we're looking at this page, so like Ubuntu is still latest version is 2004. Do you know how much time it takes to certify like 2204?
I do not know that answer. Steve, any possibility you know that?
I want to say that it's usually within 90 days of when the operating system comes out, but I can't guarantee that.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, that's one tech spec I don't keep up to date, but I try, but as you can see from this discussion and where we've gone in this product, there's a lot of technical knowledge that you can gain by doing this. So I've been using Sentinel I've been at Microsoft for about 8 months. As a customer, I ran our SOC with a partner and did all the Sentinel work by myself for a 10,000 person org. And, so you can get as deep as you want to go. Anything else? No multi-cloud? That's interesting. Nobody? Well, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to sit with us today. If you have any other additional questions, please reach out. We're always here to help. And if you don't know Steve or myself, reach out to your account executive and they will guide you to the correct person.
Scott, thanks again for taking the time to do this. Thank you for everybody for joining. And I shall see everybody tomorrow afternoon as we pick up where we left off on the Microsoft and Hayek conference. Thank you very much. Have a great night.